Hi, this is Debbie with Book and Bujo, and welcome here. Today is my October wrap-up. Alright, so we'll start with some stats. So I read 23 books in October and a total of 9,359 pages and 187.75 hours of audiobooks. They were all standard novels, so no short stories or anything like that. 2 of them were middle grade. I had 3 YA, 1 new adult, and 17 adult books. I did read books that ranged from being published in 1791 all the way to 2022. 15 of my books were from the library, 4 were borrowed, and I owned 4 of them. So 11 of them were audiobooks, 6 ebooks, and 6 physical books, which is a huge difference. I typically don't have any physical books at all, so that was definitely something different this month, which was kind of fun. We recently moved, and so I'm a lot closer to my library, and they actually have some of the books that I want to read, so it's been kind of fun being able to use my library again. So one of the books was translated. For genres, I had 1 paranormal, 1 nonfiction, 4 mystery thrillers, basically 2 of each, 3 classics, 3 horror, 3 historical fiction, and 6 fantasy. Say hi to Walter, who wants to join us today. It's a nice chilly day out, so he's having fun snuggling. So my favorite book this month was Slip by David Estes, and my highest rated book was Endurance by Alfred Lansing. Best character was Harper Lynn from Sanctuary. And the standout author that was new to me is Mira Grant, which I believe is Shannon McGuire. Not sure where he wants to go. And then a standout author from one that I've read before was David Estes, who wrote Slip. I read his Fate Mark series, and it's a 5-book series, and they're all out, and it was amazing. It was his first foray into the high epic fantasy. Typically he's been doing sci-fi, dystopian, that type of book, and oh my gosh, it was so good. He's got another high epic fantasy that is coming out. I think 2 or 3 of the books are out already out of the 5, and that's the Kingfisher series. So I have all of the ones that are out already, and I can't wait to start reading those. But I'm kind of putting those off until January and kind of starting fresh in January. So star ratings, I had 4 3 stars, 11 4 stars, and 7 5 stars. So it was an amazing reading month for me. It's been a while since I've had that many 5 stars. Now I am pretty generous with my star ratings. If I don't like a book, I typically give it 3 to 2 stars, depending on like if the writing style is really good. If they did a lot of things right, I just didn't happen to enjoy it. It wasn't for me. I'll typically give it a 3 stars. Now if the writing is it's not atmospheric, there's no plot, and then yes, I will give it a 1 or 2. But overall, I am fairly generous with my star ratings, and I go more by how it makes me feel than any kind of criticalness on my part. So I started every book that was on my TBR, but I didn't complete 2 of them by the end of the month. So my punishments, what I typically do for punishments for not completing my TBR is that before starting my next TBR, I have to finish whatever I haven't finished yet. So the 2 books I hadn't finished completely was, I believe, Into the Drowning Deep and Slip. I was about 75% of the way through Into the Drowning Deep, so that one I finished up pretty quickly. I think I finished that one up on the 2nd or the 3rd. And then Slip, I was only about a quarter of the way into the book, because there was a bunch of other ones I wanted to finish first, since that one was kind of an extra book. But that one I did finish at this point. I've finished that one, and it was amazing. For my TBR-opoly, I did complete, so my first roll was Anything You Want, and that was Fool's Assassin by Robin Hobb, and I did give that one a 5 star. That one that whole series is really good. She does such a good job with character development and relationships. So my next role was an ebook, and that was The Storyteller's Secret. And that was also a book from my Amazon borrows that I do each month. And that one I gave 4 stars. It was based in the US and India. So you have the mom is from India, and the daughter, the parents moved to the US, and then the daughter was born in the US. And she ends up going back to India and kind of gets back to her roots, finding some bonds through finding out the history of her family. Next role was the A to Z challenge. So that one I had already completed, so I subbed in a Pop Sugar challenge. So for that one I chose the Ainsfield Wolf winner, and that was the Jazz Palace by Mary Morris. And that one I gave 4 stars. That one was so good. I was a musician kind of growing up, band, choir. This one was all about jazz and someone loving music, finding jazz, and through that finding himself, finding a new family, his jazz family. And it was such a heartwarming story. There's hard times, there's the highs and lows that are typical in life, and it was just really good. I enjoyed it. So 4 stars for that one. I would highly recommend that, especially if you're a musician at all. So my next role was a book you keep putting off, and so that was The Haunting of Brynn Wilder by Wendy Webb, and I gave that one 5 stars. That one I loved. It was so atmospheric. It was engaging. I do talk more about this book in my 13 Spooky Reads video, and I will link that in the cards above if you want to check it out. So my last role was choose a classic, and I choose a classic every month anyway, so that was pretty easy. So I chose The Mysterious Island by Jules Verne, and I gave that 4 stars. So I was very impressed. It's another book by Jules Verne I actually like. There was not an anemone mentioned at all, which typically, one of the first Jules Verne books I read was 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And that one I just did not like. It was all science. It was like every page had an anemone mentioned on it, and I was just like, enough with the anemones. Like, they're amazing, they're beautiful, they're interesting, but oh my gosh, does it need to be mentioned quite so frequently? So then I read The Mysterious Island. So I also read some of his others. I did like Journey to the Center of the Earth as well. The Time Machine was interesting. But The Mysterious Island I didn't realize was the second book in a series, that 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea was the first book. So that was kind of interesting. I didn't realize that. So it's a Nemo-based series. So it was kind of interesting. So The Mysterious Island by Jules Verne, 4 stars. It was really good. There is a character in this book from some of his other books, and so that was kind of fun. A little name drop in there. And the dog and the orangutan, I feel, steal the show for that book. They were just so much fun. I love them. But it was fun. It was a really interesting book. All right, so my extras was a D20 roll, and that was A Slip by David Estes. Gave that 5 stars. It's one of my new favorite books. Top 10 for the year. Wait for that video coming in December. So I loved everything about the book. It was atmospheric. It has found family, which is always a fun trope. And I cared so much about the characters. Like, I really wanted to know what happened to them. I didn't want them to get hurt. Like, there were scenes where the main character's like running for his life, and I'm just like I'm almost screaming out loud, run, go, they're coming, like you do in movies sometimes. But I found myself doing that. Like, I cared so much about the characters. So it's a sci-fi dystopian where the United States has suffered cataclysmic flooding and has gone from 52 states down to 42 states. So basically the coastlines are now all underwater, and they can no longer support the number of people that are left. So if you want to have a child and add to the population, you have to get government authorization, and then you also have to wait for someone to die in order to make sure the population remains consistent. So if you have an unauthorized child or an unbee, the child is eliminated. The ones that kind of slip through the system, they're called slips, and they are hunted until they are found and destroyed. So basically, if you have, usually slips kind of last till about 2 or 3 years old, and the child and the parent is killed. Yeah, it's the premise of it is a little disturbing. It's interesting to see some of the similarities, that you could see some of this stuff actually happening in the world. Yeah, it was really interesting. New favorite. So then my next was the TBR jar, and that was The Dream of the Red Chamber by Xueqin. Not sure about the pronunciation on that one. It was so cute. It was really cute. It was a fun a fairy tale kind of story that gives you some insight into the Chinese culture and about their fairy tales and stuff. I actually listened to this as an audiobook on LibriVox. LibriVox does free audiobooks, and they do ones they're all older books, so the ones that are in the public domain. And oh my gosh, the people that they had narrating it did such a good job, and it was just a cute story overall. I mean, there's love and death and hope and sorrow and angst and all of that in there, but it was enjoyable. I'm glad I read that one. And then for a non-fiction book, I read and I gave Dream of the Red Chamber 3.5 stars. So the nonfiction was Endurance by Alfred Lansing, and that one I gave 5 stars. That was my highest rated book. And thank you, Plant-Based Bride, for the suggestion on that. I was watching one of her wrap-ups, and she had read that book, and it piqued my interest. I found it at my library, and they had the audiobook, and it was so good. The narrator did an amazing job, but such an inspiring story of leadership, teamwork, working together, and surviving against all odds. Again, this is based on a true story, and oh my gosh, it was so good. It was so good. Like, I can't say enough about this book. It was just, you have to read it. And just surviving for as long as they did on the ice and on glaciers, and it was just amazing. It was amazing. There's some heartbreaking times in there, but yeah, the story is so inspiring. So I did participate in 3 book clubs. So I had the Full Moon Book Club, and that was Nettle and Bone by Kingfisher, and I did give that one 4 stars. Howling Pack, I read Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant, and I gave that 5 stars. That one was really good. I'm like, how can you not love killer mermaids? Enough said, right? And then for the Shadowhunter read-along, we were reading City of Heavenly Fire by Cassandra Clare, and this is a reread for me, and I again gave it 4 stars both times. And if you want to see reviews on some of those books, those are also in my 13 Spooky Reads video, which I'll leave in the cards. So for the readathons, I participated in Breath of the Wildathon, the Rudania quest, and I did complete that. I read for the different prompts, I read The Jazz Palace, City of Heavenly Fire, Into the Drowning Deep, and then I also read The Vanishing Half, Cemetery Boys, and House of Leaves, which I gave 3 and 4 stars to all of those. The Haunting of Reader's House was another one that I completed, and that one I read basically all the ones that I read for Breath of the Wildathon and for my TBR, as well as Babel and Coraline. And then for my Spooky Reads, again, I completed that one, and I'll leave that video linked for you as well. I think that is about it. Yeah, I would love to know what you read in October. Did you have a new favorite? Did you have a surprising favorite that you didn't think you would like and you ended up loving? Did you have a couple duds that were like, they were good, nothing special? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to chat about that with you. So again, like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell if you want to hear more from me, and so you don't miss a video. And thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you in the comments. Bye.